This is Bob Baker with Jazz Guitar Today, and we're here with Mike Moreno. First of all, I want to say thanks for coming on today. I really do appreciate it. One of the things that I really admire about your playing, other than, you've got great prodigious chops and you pay attention to tone, but you're very lyrical. There's a sensitivity and a lyricism in what you do. Are you aware of that?
No, I'm aware of it. I mean, I'm aware of it in the sense that I try not to let the technique be the main thing of what defines my playing. Like the one thing that I really, really, really don't like, and I think it's like it comes out of a lot of insecurities with older guitar players or just guitar players in general, is when they criticize people for having technique. So it's almost like to be soulful, you have to be a bad guitar player. That's not true at all. And I feel like a lot of people fall back on that. Well, my stuff is just raw and dirty. It's like, no, you're just not playing guitar well. So I try to play the guitar as an instrument, and I think if you can play the guitar on a certain level and still be lyrical, that's the goal. I mean, that's the goal of any musician. So why would anyone criticize somebody for having good technique and, you know what I mean, fluidity?
That you're singing my song. That's
Yeah,
kind of my. We just met each other, but that's kind of my mantra. That it's nothing new. It's learn the instrument, forget all that stuff, and play. But
right.
when you learn the instrument, you have the chops and you understand. You get it, but you do it very, very well. I mean, your chops are great, obviously, and the tone. But when I hear you play, I hear music, and it reminds me of something that Joe DiOrio said about Joe Pass. Joe Pass was playing a D chord, old run of the, cowboy D chord.
Right.
And DiOrio gave him a hard time about it. He said, what are you doing, man? He says, hey, it's there, it works.
Yeah, I mean,
It's music.
one of my favorite Wayne Shorter tunes has all this amazing harmony, and then in the middle of it, it has just a straight D triad out of nowhere, and it's just like, wow, that's what makes that tune so hip. If you put a triad in the right place, it's gonna sound amazing.
So, well, you're obviously, you went to the new school.
Yeah.
You went to a performance high school. Now, the high school that you went to, was that for guitar or was it in something else?
Oh, it was for everything. I mean, it was the jazz and classical, and of course all the instruments. There was the orchestra, there was the jazz department, which had a big band, and the small group. So then there was a vocal department. There was like a art department. There was a theater department. There was a dance department. So all of the arts basically in one high school, and it was amazing. And it's amazing how many people from my class, those 4 years, or I was only there for 3 actually, but those 3 years that I was there, like how many well-known people there are like out in the world just from those 3 years, that I was there.
Well, that's a testament to the program and to the teachers for sure.
Yeah, it's a testament to everything. It's testament to how, the teachers, of course, have to be good, but also it's a testament to the students because every great school has great teachers, but still only about 10% of the students that come out of it to do something in that field. So it kind of is, it's both. For me, it was like, yes, having teachers that didn't interfere too much with what we wanted to do. That's the beauty about that high school. Our jazz director, if you could play past a certain point, he just left the room. And he was just like, I'll be back in like half an hour and you guys can. He rarely ever really asked what we were doing in the small group. The small group had a director, which was, I was the director the second year I was in it. The first year was another guy. And so I was in charge of running the group, running the gigs, and organizing the music and organizing the concerts. Our director would just come in and listen and be like, okay, that's cool. But he never made us do anything, really. So that was kind of the beauty of it, where the students kind of, as long as he knew that the students were inspired enough, they could get in the top group, in the small group, and just they were left to their own devices, basically, which was really cool. I mean, at 16, 17 years old, to have that freedom to just play the music we wanted to play. So, I mean, that high school for me, what was the most inspiring thing about being there was how many great players had come out of there already, like Eric Harlan, Jason Moran, Chris Dave, Herman Matthews, a lot of different people, Everett Harp, you know, so many. And so for me, it was more like, I don't want to let the director down. He's taught all these amazing people, and I don't want to be the one that's like comes in and is super sad, you know.
Mhm.
So, but of course, you know, it's like there's only a handful of people from that school that actually did do something from the hundreds that were there, you know.
So then you went to New York.
Yeah, I moved to New York right after high school, like 18 years old. Went straight to the new school. Me and Robert Glassberg came up here at the same time. He also was at that high school. So, yeah, that was 1997, fall of 97. Been here ever since.
That's excellent. And you grew up in Texas, right?
Yeah, I grew up in Houston.
I would imagine at 18 years old, that was a little bit probably very exciting, but also kind of mind changing, if you will, to go from Houston to New York City.
Well, I was so ready for it by the time I graduated that I mean I was nervous, and I was like a shy kid,
Yeah,
so that was like a little bit. But I was never shy to play. I was
right.
just shy to kind of speak up. But also at the same time, when I think about it, I did some things at that time that I would never do today, which is like go up to some pretty amazing people and just be like, hey, this is a tape of me playing. And just based off of some other things that I would say to them, they actually went and listened to it, like Peter Bernstein, Joshua Redman, uh, Mark Whitfield, people like that who actually could tell just by a few things that I was talking about that,
Sure.
oh, maybe this kid can play and I should check it out. And I would call them back like you know, I'd call them like
Yeah.
2 weeks later and be like, hey man, did you check out that tape? And they're like, oh yeah, actually, you know, or you know, if they would be like, oh man, yeah, I still have it here. You know what, I'm gonna check it out now or something like that. But that's how I got to know Peter. That's how got to know Mark Whitfield. And initially, that's how I got to know Josh Redman. But it wasn't until, you know, after being in New York for a while and getting some gigs, prior gigs, and having people really hear me on a bigger stage, to where like someone like Josh would actually call me for gigs, you know.
So let's talk about music and guitar.
Sure.
You had I heard a quote of yours something like that. If you don't hear harmony, you can't play. Something is that that's kind of a paraphrase.
I
You
mean,
remember saying
basically,
that?
I mean, if you can't tell that a chord is major or dominant or minor, then yeah, you probably can't play your instrument. I mean, that's pretty simple to me. But I meet a lot of students that they want to learn. And the reason why I say that, and everything I say when I'm teaching is kind of like it's more to get people to stop thinking that music is so complicated. It's really like a frustration with kids expecting to learn some kind of scale or chord voicing that all of a sudden is going to make them sound like Schofield or me or somebody that they admire, and that will never happen. You know what I mean? It's like
Right.
if you can't already hear what that voicing is, then how is it going to make sense if someone just shows it to you? It's more of a thing to where I've taught so many lessons at this point, probably more than some of the people that I listen to. Like I don't think, you know, when I was growing up, I don't think Schofield gave probably as many lessons as I have because he's on the road 2, 3 times more than I am, or someone like Matheny. So I've taught so many people just since I graduated from college, and it's the same kind of problems I see over and over and over, where people are expecting to get one scale or one record or one chord voicing that's going to all of a sudden somehow make them hear rhythm and hear groove and their eighth note feel, and they're going to have technique, and it's always like they're looking for a shortcut, where it's just like, well, can you hear the music that you actually want to play? And most of them can't, you know. So then that's the first problem. It's like
Sure.
I'd rather have a student that can hear what he wants to do, but just can't do it yet, rather than somebody that can't hear what he wants to do, but also can't do it. You know, I don't know.
Along those lines, and I don't want to get bogged down in this, but along those lines, my favorite is if I only had that guitar pedal, I could probably
Yeah,
play.
I was like, which guitar pedal can I buy that will transcribe everything
Yeah.
for me
The,
and show me it on a staff, everything written out.
the do not suck pedal is
Yeah,
they
suck
haven't
off.
they haven't quite put they have that for vocalists though. I mean they have some
Yeah, they have
version of
auto
that.
tune. Yeah,
So you're doing a lot of teaching now.
Yeah, I mean, right now I teach for Manhattan School of Music, I teach for Queens College, and I teach for Temple University, and sometimes for New School. But
Mhm.
right now, New School is basically, it's down to the hardcore teachers that are there. So there's not a lot. They lost a lot of students over the pandemic, so it's not like a lot
Sure.
of adjunct work going on for the New School at the moment.
How many students do you teach a week generally?
I would say probably around 15. I try not to do more than 2 lessons a day, so I space it out. It's super draining. I couldn't do more. Like when I do
Yeah.
3 lessons, I'm done. Like I play a lot in the lessons.
Yeah.
So there's two different types of teachers. There's teachers who are like constantly writing stuff on paper and giving you assignments and just talking. Someone like me or Peter Bernstein who is like you get in a room and you play with the student and you try to, because for me, I can give advice about like a lot of things, but if you play with someone and you let them feel what it's like to have someone who understands rhythm up to a certain point, uh, so they can hear it and I give a lot of examples, and they can play and you can play back and forth, and you can challenge them in different ways, and they can hear what you're talking about manifested, because a lot of teachers can talk about a lot of stuff, but they can't really play it physically themselves. So then to actually be able to play it, to me, that's what I enjoyed about studying music.
Sure. So the teachers that you've had or the influences that you've had, who's been the biggest in terms of like a teacher and then maybe players that you've enjoyed?
I mean, there's tons of players that I listened to and it was influenced
No, I
by.
understand. I
But I mean, some of the main ones were that kind of opened my eyes to how jazz language could fit on the guitar, and showing like really clear examples. Were like, I mean, obviously Wes. If there's one guitar player I could tell anyone to listen to, it would be Wes, because the way he wrote, if you just learn his tunes, they're one of it's not like learning a standard or learning a Wayne Shorter tune. If you are a guitar player and you learn a West tune, you automatically sound good. Because the rhythms are all there, all the comping, all the hits, the voicings are pretty standard, but also, I mean, the standard good voicings. So if you learn the voicings, if you have someone that shows you the exact voicings that he's using, the rhythms are not in any way complicated. The melodies are good, and very melodic and funky and groovy, and so you automatically can learn. You can go on a gig and just play West tunes as a teenager, and if you just play what West played, it's going to sound good. Which is, it's not the same as like going on a gig and playing what Herbie played. Very few people can do that. But I'm not talking about Wes's solos, but even the solos, you can kind of just more or less learn them and play them on the guitar because it fits right on the guitar. So that's for me was like when I started checking out Wes, I was like, oh, I kind of see how this can go, work on the guitar. Pat Martino was another one. I mean, just for linear stuff and horizontal playing across the neck and like really eighth note driven stuff. Pat Martino was huge, and in a way, Benson also. Although I couldn't really play the stuff that Benson was playing, I could play the stuff that Pat Martino was playing. But Benson's thing is a weird thing to where like to play Benson's lines, you kind of just will just sound like Benson. Like everyone I know who loves Benson pretty much sounds
like
like
him.
him. Yeah,
Yeah.
where that doesn't happen with a lot of other people. But yeah, I was aware of that even back then when I was young. I was like, do not try to sound like George Benson.
He's got I don't have a good word for it, and somebody else is going to
Yeah,
throw a brick at me, but he's got affections in his playing and affections in his playing, affections in his playing that are unique to him.
yeah.
And to play his lines, I think you have to kind of employ those. And when you, as soon as you employ those, then all of a sudden you sound like him. I
Well,
think
it's like
that's,
trying to play with your thumb and play like like you can play a West tune, but if you play it with your thumb, then to me that just then you're definitely just like trying to sound like Wes.
yeah. When I transcribed West tunes, they were always so different than other stuff that I transcribed. I mean, his
Yeah,
approach, it's the same notes and everything, but his approach was just unique. It was just very, very different. And
it's kind of like learning a Monk tune. Like he wrote in the same way I feel like that Monk wrote. Like if you just kind of play more or less what Monk wrote, which
right,
many piano players do, it just sounds great.
yeah,
The tunes are so good and so catchy.
It's a good
that,
tune, you know.
yeah, I mean, so monk tunes and West tunes, like for me, Wes is like the monk of jazz guitar because even though he plays monk tunes, of course, but like the songs, if you play the original songs in that way, it's easier than playing like a Coltrane tune. I don't know how to describe it, but I always feel like they're kind of similar in that way.
What are you working on right now? What's where's your edge? What are you diving into? What are you pushing?
I mean, I've been working on all this technical stuff. I mean, it has been, unfortunately, very little actual musical. I mean, of course, I'm teaching all the time, so I have this way of teaching now to where whatever tunes I'm learning, um, I start showing that to my students because that's a one way for me to shed it also. But also, it's but it if it's a student that's on a certain level, like they should. It's also stuff. It doesn't mean that I'm learning the super advanced stuff. It
Right.
just means that it might be a song that I never got to, but now I got to it, and I want to get it in my you know in memory and like kind of just like play it without thinking about it. And so a lot of times I just tend to teach them through the stuff that I'm also working on. So then it's not boring for me, and they love it too. It's not like I'm showing them something that they're not digging. You know, I mean, harmony is harmony, and jazz harmony is not that complex. So it's not like we're talking about Bartok or anything. So all of it is related.
Did you study classical? You mentioned Bartok. Did you study classical music?
No, I didn't actually. I mean, I definitely took some influence on my own from it, like where I transcribed some Chopin stuff and some Ravel and Debussy, and I learned certain things on the guitar, but just the same way that I would learn them if they were jazz tunes. Just like figuring out the harmony and the melodies, and then figuring out how I could play it on guitar. But it was more just because I loved those pieces. So I mean, I did some of that, but not hardcore studying. Like I didn't go to the classical department at New School or anything like that. Yeah, or I didn't study classical guitar. So actually, the classical music that I've checked out has nothing to do with the guitar. So then, but they're beautiful songs. To me, I'm just listening to them like they're
It's
song.
music, and you just happen to play them on the guitar.
Yeah, I mean, all the music that I'm super into, Wayne Shorter's music or Herbie or Miles. I mean, there was no guitar on any of that stuff. So that's way. It's always been way more interesting to me. Like, because for guitar, I want to listen to like rock music, like or folk, like Joni Mitchell. I don't really listen to jazz guitar. Everybody I know who just pretty much checks out jazz guitar, they all sound pretty much like the stuff they listen to.
Right.
So it's not any super unique voices to me, you know.
Well,
And all the
that's one
guitar
of the
players,
things that
yeah.
getting back to where we started, to getting back when I listen to you play, I'm hearing a lot of I'm hearing lyricism. I'm hearing a unique voice whenever
Right,
you
that's
play.
because I didn't. Yeah, I mean, to me, that's because I didn't. If I there were some guitar players who I really did love, like where I had to stop listening to them, like Peter Bernstein. I mean, I would, of course, I hear Peter all the time live, so to me
Right.
that's plenty. And it's not that I get. I actually it's the exact opposite. I never get tired of hearing Peter, which is the danger for me, you know.
No,
And
he's wonderful.
yeah, so a lot of players to me are like that. Whereas Matheny and Bill Frisell or even Kurt Rosenwinkel and I love the way their music and their playing. So I just wait till I see them live. Like it's not anything that I'm checking out at home.
Can you demonstrate that on your guitar? Something that's like that would be something where you brought in a non-guitaristic thing and brought it to your guitar. Is there anything? I mean, I
Huh.
don't put you on the spot, but
I don't know how to explain it. It comes from a lot of different things. It doesn't mean that it's not completely 100% not from guitar. It just
oh, I
means
understand.
it might be something that's more like from another style of guitar playing. But without, putting on an overdrive pedal and playing like a rock solo, or but whenever, if I play I don't know, what can I play? Or there's some tunes that I've written like
Oh, that's beautiful. That's gorgeous, Mike.
So kind of taking some influence from folk music and Brazilian music and just whatever, classical music, just trying to play not, the same, know, the kind of, I mean, I don't have anything against standard voicings. It just, to me, the music that I listen to definitely doesn't sound like that. So if I listen to something like a ballad, the voicings are different. So to me, there's nothing modern about it in any kind of way because that stuff was around. I mean, that's how when I hear Bill Evans or something like that, the chords sound like that. They don't sound like there's Joe Pass and then there's Bill Evans. They were living at the same time, so one can't be more modern than the other. If you play that sound more of a, of what piano players were doing in the 60s, and you play it on guitar, that's not modern. It's just, you're just not playing the same voicings that every other guitar player is playing. Now I'm kind of talking about when people do anything else besides the standard rhythms and licks and voicings on jazz guitar, they're just like, that's too modern for me. Of course, I in some way I know what they're like, which is what you were talking about, like still keeping it lyrical, still playing in the pocket. If you're
Right.
playing lyrically and you're playing in the pocket, but you're playing something a little bit different, it doesn't necessarily make it just a modern approach. It just means that you're playing the guitar with a different language than most guitar players play with. Yeah, so I try to get it. I try to get it just to where it's not, like overwhelming, where it doesn't distract. But I still want to be able to play rhythmic, which is
Right.
if you have too much reverb and delay on the guitar, then you can't do that.
Yeah, you
So
can't
then,
hear yeah, you lose the beats, if you
yeah,
will.
exactly. So then, finding that balance where I can still play rhythmic and short notes and here and there, that's the goal. Yeah, I look to like rock guys for that kind of stuff. I mean, I did a gig with Don Was, Don Was from Blue Note.
Yeah, sure.
Wasn't all that. He called me for a gig, and we did this festival out in San Francisco in Golden State Park. Bob Weir was on the gig. Also, he sang like a couple tunes and had like Bob's set. They got the guys that bring all their gear, set everything up, their rack and everything. Man, their guitars just sound ridiculous. Like, they play a chord, it's just like, wow. It doesn't matter if they're not like the most technical players, but all they think about is tone, which is not what jazz guitar players think about.
No.
They're thinking about, the language and the
Right.
voices and the rhythm and stuff. The tone is a lot of times the last thing. They're just plugging straight into the amp, which also sounds good for a certain time period. But the other thing is that you can take a loud band and put them in a smaller club, and it'll just blow everybody away, but it'll be awesome.
Well,
you know,
that's a visceral thing, though, don't you think? You know,
yeah,
it's
but it doesn't work the other way around.
tell me about your guitar a little bit.
Oh, so this is like a Stephen Marchione. Both of these are Stephen Marchione guitars. This is like the 59 burst model that he made, which was basically kind of modeled after like those 59 Les Pauls with the Michigan maple tops and the mahogany backs.
Hmm.
And so, and the flame maple. So when he started making this, because I had two spruce tops when he started making this model, and I was like, well, I don't need two spruce tops. I wanted one with maple because I had played another one that he had made. I was like, Jesus, man, this is louder and there's more sustain and it's just more punchy. I was like, well, what if I gave you this one back and you sold it and then made, so that's what he did. He sold this guitar I had been playing for about 8 years at that time. Yeah, he sold it to some Japanese guys, and with that, he made me this and another guitar, like a Strat, this tremolo guitar. And then when he started making these, so the other guitar I have back there is like the newest model he's been making, which is it's not Gibson scale, the neck, as far as the scale of it.
So it's 25 and a half, maybe, or 25?
Yeah, it's 25 and a half, I think. It's a
25.
long neck, and the stretch here is pretty wide.
Yeah, I can see
So
that.
yeah,
It
it's.
sounds great. I mean, it sounds wonderful,
I mean,
actually.
yeah, I mean, I can't really go back to regular necks anymore, just
Yeah.
just for chords. I can for single lines, but I mean, if I'm gonna play like something, down in here,
Yeah, there's something about the separation of the strings and all of that there's no
yeah.
physical interference, and I'm getting a little tweaky on it now, but um, there's definitely, I think you get better separation in notes with that kind of a neck.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, that's why he does
So you
it.
can hear the voicings, you can hear everything.
And then, when I got this and I played it, and I was like, man, I love it for single lines. And I played a couple of chords on it, and he kind of saw the expression on my face. He was like, oh, it'll never play like your semi-hollow body.
So is it
Yeah,
24 and 3/4, that one,
yeah. This one is
or
Gibson
Gibson?
scale. Yeah. So, but it's punchy.
Yeah.
So with overdrive, this one is great. Like you click on it. Uh, you know,
Sure. Yeah, there's a punchy mid range to that
yeah,
setup for sure.
yeah. This is killer guitar, man. I mean, it just needs to be played. So I took it on the road once before the pandemic. It got a good like 3 weeks on the road, or no, longer than that, about a month. And then then the pandemic hit, so I didn't. It really hasn't been played since then. So it still feels like a kind of brand new
Kind of
guitar.
brand new. So you had a pretty solid touring schedule up until the pandemic hit.
Yeah. Um, I mean, 2020 was looking. It started off amazing. I mean, I did Asia. I went to Asia with my band, so we did China, Korea, and then I came back to the U.S., went to NAMM show with Steven and did some promo stuff with him there. And then I went to Europe with both of these guitars. And I did something in Spain as a guest with some Spanish musicians. And then I joined Kendrick Scott and was out for all of February. And then by the end of February, that's when stuff really started getting bad.
Yeah.
I came back to New York. I did one gig with my band in March. That was completely packed in a small club like here in Brooklyn. It was like the worst place to be during a pandemic. But as far as I know, no one got sick from that. And that was like March 6th. It was the next week, like after the 10th, people started it started getting really bad.
So what is the prognosis? What are you thinking for 2021? Are people starting to call you to book things later in the year?
I only have one gig, yeah, in September, and that was booked like 2 weeks ago. Yeah, they already sent me the deposit, which is great.
Yeah.
So that's with my band, so festival in Houston, which is awesome because I get to go hang out in my hometown and see my
Sure.
family and
That's
stuff.
wonderful.
And it's a good gig. You get to take the band, and if all is well, like at that time, then I'll probably book a few gigs like around that.
Your YouTube series that you have is really really cool. It's keeping you kind of in the loop and with the guys, and
Yeah,
it's a really really cool thing. And for people who haven't seen that, do you do that on a regular basis? Is it once a week, or is it
it's every Sunday. Yeah,
yeah, every Sunday? Yeah. What time of the day is it? What time of the night?
6 p.m.
6 p.m. Okay.
Yeah,
And then you've had, I mean, I saw that you had Mike Stern over the house, and
yeah. I mean, a lot of people have done it. Mike was one of the first. It was Peter Bernstein, Mike Stern, Nir Felder, Mark Whitfield, Jotan Silberstein, Gilad Hexelman.
too bad
Uh,
you couldn't get any firepower to come and do this with.
yeah, Adam Rogers just did it, and Steve Cardenas. And then I'm doing interviews too. We do interviews here. So I did one with Adam, I did one with Steve Cardenas, I did one with Mike, and one with Mark Whitfield. All of them are incredible in their own way. Like, um, yeah, really, really, really cool to sit down with them. And I wish I had it, was doing it when Peter was here, but we will do it at some point, you know. I try to
Well,
do it with the guys that have been around, at least a good 10 and 15 years more than I have. So,
well,
uh,
you got a heck of a list of people that are here. Plus, you did a gig at Smalls.
yeah, I've done
Uh,
a couple of streams. Well, one stream with my band for them, some with others.
that's pretty cool. And I mean, if they haven't checked you out on YouTube, they really need to get on your YouTube channel and check you out and see what you're doing.
Yeah, Moreno Vids.
That's really cool stuff. Is there anything you'd like me to touch on before we call it a day here?
Oh, I mean, no, this was cool, man.
Yeah, no, I
I
listen.
mean, maybe the one thing that I would maybe say is I d do not put my music on Spotify or Apple Music for good reason. So then, if anyone's interested in actually hearing my original music, that will
Right.
never be streamed. So that's you can get it on Amazon. You can get it on the iTunes store, which is extremely hard to access now. So if you want to buy it from iTunes, then you have to go through that process of trying to find the iTunes store in your iTunes, which is really hard to do. It took me about at least 5 minutes to find it. So yeah, and it's through my website or CD Baby, Bandcamp. I have it. It's on Bandcamp for download.
Also, do you teach remotely?
I do. During the semester, it gets a little tricky, but I can take a few people here and there
Right.
outside of the schools. Yeah, so then you just get in touch with me through my email address, which is just mike@mikemoreno.com. It's on my website. So yeah, and then also the standards from film course that I did last summer. I'm going to do it again, but bigger now I have all the lights, the cameras, the green screen, so everything's kind of like in a serious
Sure.
presentation mode
Do you
now.
have any recording projects coming up? I mean, you got any things where you maybe
Well,
later this year?
no, because I mean, there's no reason for me to do it now
Yeah,
because
because you don't can't tour with it.
you can't tour with it, and for me, the one thing that I know that makes money in a situation like this, and that's basically what it comes down to in a pandemic, is education stuff. But just in general, like, I mean, that's just the reality. People are not
Right.
willing to pay for your music, but they're willing to pay to know how you made it. They
Totally.
want to do the same thing.
Yeah. You're truly a musician. You transcend the instrument. And I think that's a testament to you that you're doing some really cool things.
Thank you, man.
You're
Yeah.
welcome. So
Yeah.
this is Bob Baker from Jazz Guitar Today with Mike Moreno, and we really appreciate your
Oops,
time.
sorry.
And, yes, your SM7 microphone, don't break it.
Yeah.
Keep
Get it
trying,
right.
brother. Keep
Yeah.
trying. We'll do everything we can to help you, whatever we can do.
Man, I appreciate
Thanks,
that.
Mike.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me.
See you, man. Bye bye now.